Welcome, tennis fans, to the 38th edition of Changeover Chat in the Tennis One app. I'm your host, Randy Master. Today's guest is no stranger to the online tennis retail space. He is a senior buyer product manager at Midwest Sports, based in Cincinnati. Go Bengals. Are you a Bengals guy?
Eh,
Not a good subject.
it's hard to be, but go Bengals, sure.
Okay. Well, a lot of people are afraid to identify themselves as a Bengals fan, but Dave Lemke, welcome to Changeover Chat. Really happy you joined us today. This should be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah,
and
thanks for
also
having me.
happy holidays to you.
Likewise.
So Midwest Sports has always been known as one of the most respected and professional brands in tennis. Can you talk a bit about when Midwest got their start in tennis specifically, um,
Yeah,
and who was behind that, and kind of the rise from those early days up to where you are now is just a success story.
yeah, sure. It's a family-owned business started by one of the Wolf brothers in the early '80s, and it was a teaching pro, and that kind of dovetailed into having a small pro shop in downtown Cincinnati, and his brother Greg helped out with the business early on, stringing rackets, and Greg bought into the business in the late '80s, and they opened an additional retail store, starting getting more into the mail order side of things. These are pre-internet days, and so grassroots is in retail, and we still operate a retail store today, and that's kind of our roots in tennis. And you know, uh, going through the mail order side of things, you were able to have a little broader reach across the country. They actually sold a lot of products to Procter and Gamble executives. Their global headquarters is in the in Cincinnati of all places, and so we're able to kind of spread their wings a little bit, shipping things mail order across the country. And then, as the internet and e-commerce became more of a thing in the late '90s, early 2000s, shopping carts got more secure and things of that nature. The next step was into the e-commerce realm, but we've never not had a retail space. So we've always operated brick and mortar. Um, we became the official tournament retailer out at the Western and Southern Open in the early 2000s as well. So that kind of gives us another touch point every year. This past year, notwithstanding, with the tournament being moved to New York, but the tournament gives us a nice kind of feather in the cap as well to, again, continue to stay in touch with that grassroots tennis customer. We enjoy that every August, done that every year for about the last 20 years. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but yeah, it's just been really cool, organic growth over the years. I've been with the company about 20 years. So know all the stories. Greg's younger brother, Jeff, his son, JJ, is a big up and coming ATP player. Jeff was my coach way back in the day. And that's how I got to know the family, was through Jeff. And, just incredible sporting heritage, top to bottom throughout the whole Wolf family, and great people to work for. Love tennis. And yeah, here we are. I mean, we kind of still operate on all fronts. I mean, we still, again, operate the retail store. Like to think of ourselves as knowing everything about tennis and tennis retail, um, which is becoming kind of a lost art these days. It's hard to find places that just specialize. Everybody wants to be a jack of all trades, but I think we pride ourselves in being experts at what we do, and still carry that through to this day. Try to translate that to our website as much as we can too, knowing how that can be kind of impersonal. We do try to take a lot of the retail components or the things that we've learned over the years in the retail space and try to translate that to a digital space as well to make this experience a little more friendly, maybe a little less intimidating, maybe a little less Amazon-esque, where it's just kind of a big box of stuff and you just have to root around and find what you're looking for. We try to kind of guide you and help you and things of that nature. So, but yeah, that's too long of an answer, but
No, it's perfect. And I actually wanted to ask a follow-up question. You're talking about JJ Wolf, obviously. What's his connection to the Wolf family? It's interesting. I never put the two together. He's such a great player.
So his uncle Greg is the owner of Midwest Sports.
Okay. Yeah, I
So
know Greg. Yeah.
there's six Wolf brothers, and Greg's right in the middle. Jeff's younger than he is. Jeff is JJ's dad. JJ Jeffrey John. So Jeff's his dad, and that's how that was my connection to the Wolf family initially. Was Jeff was my coach back in the day. So yeah, so cool to watch JJ. I mean, I man, he's just like that close.
Yes. Let's get into the product side and speaking to your customers and making sure that when somebody comes to the Midwest Sports site or someone comes to the Midwest store in Cincinnati, that you are finding the right equipment, gear, racket, shoes for them. We've been on tennis courts long enough where it's sometimes just cringeworthy to see a beginner player walk out there and they are either using a racket that was manufactured 50 years ago with bad strings in it. I've even seen somebody with a broken string out there.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, they've hit 10 balls in their life and they're out there swinging, Roger's stick, like the heaviest stick that you can play with, and you just want to help them. And so the question is obvious. How do you play a role in just fixing that for players when they are looking for Midwest for advice and to buy the right gear?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's online, it's obviously a little more difficult than in the retail space. I mean, if somebody comes into our store, they come visit our tournament store in August, face to face, it's easier to kind of have that dialogue and kind of ask some questions and have it be more interactive. Online, it's a little more difficult. We do try to have some tools on the site to be able to interact with people. We've got live chat. We have real life people answering the phone that are in our building that are experts about tennis and equipment and everything else. We have various articles on the site in positions where you would expect to maybe find them if you're searching rackets. There's articles on the page that'll help you kind of maybe whittle things down a little bit. But yeah, online it's a little more difficult, but we like to think we put some tools out there that are kind of educational, not too long-winded, maybe to close the loop, hopping on a chat or giving us a call. Email's a little slower, but we can certainly respond to those inquiries too. But yeah, just to try to get people onto the right path, because it's definitely intimidating. There's a lot of options out there. I would offer too many options from most of the brands, because typically when they're rolling out new product, they don't want to miss a SKU. I mean, they come out with new rackets every 18 to 24 months, and they had 6 in this line previously. Well, they don't want to come out with 5 or 4, even though that's really all you're going to sell. They always feel like they need to kind of keep coming out with more and more. And it just makes it harder for the customer to kind of whittle through a lot of that. So we try to eliminate a lot of that noise as much as we can, again, with some of those tools. And this year's definitely been a year where we've seen more players either coming back to the game or coming to the game for the first time. So we've really worked pretty hard on doing some educational things from the standpoints of publishing a new Pure Tennis blog, updating some of the article content on our site. I mentioned to you, I'm doing these monthly podcasts with Alex at Cracked Rackets, just trying to talk about some of the things that maybe people either didn't know about regarding maintenance, how to choose a frame, whatever it may be, or they just kind of forgot about it. They'd come back to the game and they didn't maybe realize how important it was to restring your racket, or what is the lifespan of a tennis frame or a pair of tennis shoes, just things like that. So we've worked pretty hard this year, I think, just to speak more on an educational side. And, we don't know everything, but it's just our objective viewpoint. And, I like to think experience still counts for something. So I try to, drive as much of that content as possible, and kind of listen to what our customers are saying too, and kind of incorporate that into a format that's reasonably easy to digest. So it's not easy, but we definitely take pride in taking a good shot at it.
Yeah, well, it's so important. I was going to mention strings as well as rackets because, as you know, there have been a couple of times where I've walked out there with a racket that I knew that it was going to hit very much like a racket that I've had in the past. It might be an updated model of a racket, wrong string job, just felt completely different.
Hmm.
I don't think a lot of players, even intermediate players, really understand what to put in their racket these days because of all the hybrids. A full bed of natural gut is probably too expensive. How do you know the importance of strings? I know the importance of strings. It's never been so important because there's so many strings. How is that even more complicated than the racket, do you think?
It's it's just adding another layer to it, and again, that's another area where there's way too many choices. And it just it kind of becomes paralysis by overanalysis for customers trying to decide. Um, there's a lot to kind of wade through. And that was definitely a big point that we hit a lot this year, especially just trying to, again, speak to that educational piece of, how important the strings are. It seems obvious. You're buying the racket, but the racket's the glamorous $200 purchase. And I think for a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, string's kind of an afterthought. And I kind of liken it to, buying a really nice sports car and then putting a really cheap set of tires on it. It's not going to perform properly if you don't have kind of an integrated package. And, so we do try to, again, have some things on the site with some article content, have some blog posts that kind of speak to that on our Pure Tennis blog. And I know I've talked to Alex. He's probably sick of hearing me talk about it too on some of these podcasts where, again, we're just trying to educate people on kind of what string is appropriate for what type of player. To your point, walking out on court, seeing people using something that's really completely inappropriate for what their ability level is. Same thing is said for string. I don't know how many times I've seen people get a really lightweight racket, and then they put polyester string in it. And just not an appropriate combination. In our retail space, we have the ability to kind of, steer people a little bit online. It's not always as easy to do that. We try to put those tools on the site in a place where people can connect with that information if they would like. We certainly can't force them to, but yeah, it's really been, I mean, it's cool. That's the stuff I enjoy. I mean, I've strung forever. I'm an MRT. I've strung over 10,000 rackets. I've strung on tour a little bit, and I mean, I just enjoy it. So for me, it's like I can't imagine not thinking about strings and how important that is. But sometimes I'm a little too close to the forest to see the trees. So it's
Yeah.
I need to be able to kind of step back and say, hey, here's some information, here's some bullet points, here's the type of, if you're this player, this is probably the type of string you should be looking. And Yeah, just try to boil it down for people and put it in layman's terms. And I think that's where we work really hard to do that. And again, sometimes to close that loop, you might need some final questions answered or whatever. We're always happy to chat with you online, take a phone call, help walk you through it. We're not the intimidating, specialty shop where you have to know everything when you come in.
Right.
Not at all. I mean, we're friendly Midwesterners, right? We're we're happy to help. So, but definitely pride ourselves on service and trying to help you get the right thing for your game.
Yeah. Well, speaking of friendly Midwesterners, you mentioned Alex Gruskin. He's a friendly guy. He thinks he knows everything. But if Luke Jensen or myself or Craig Carden or you possibly, if you hit him something before his generation, he has no idea what you're talking about. So maybe today, if you talk to him or I talk to him, ask him if he's heard of the string Blue Star. Have you ever heard of Blue Star?
I have. Yep.
And Stay Tight. So when I was a kid, those were the those were the two strings. I'd
Yeah.
love to try to hit with that stuff now.
No,
Um,
I think last time we got off on a rant because he loves like an old Prince graphite or something like that, and that's what I used
well,
those for a long time. And I said I used to put Kevlar, a Kevlar synthetic hybrid in there called Pro Blend, and
Yeah,
it was just kind
and
of
it
funny.
was like,
Like you were just like, oh, really? What's it's like? I mean, this is before polyester, man. Polyester hasn't been around forever, so I kind of I was kidding with him about that, but yeah, that's going back a little bit.
yeah. Remember that stuff just used to whittle down to like you would play with it
Yeah,
until the very end.
yeah,
That was great. That was a
yeah,
great
and it was
experience.
it was hard on you, but yeah, but no, I was like talking with him. He's a good guy.
He's a very good guy. And why don't we talked a little bit about Cincinnati and the Western and Southern Partnership, and I know how important it is. I've been out there so many times and enjoyed going through there and talking to friends in the industry, and had a couple beers with Greg Wolf uh, on a couple of occasions. And
Mhm.
I don't want to get too far into it. I want to know what the emotions were like when this year you knew it wasn't going to happen. Maybe you didn't know it was going to happen for the entire year. Then it moves to Flushing with the U.S. Open in the bubble. Um, was it I guess upsetting when you knew the tournament wasn't going to be played, thinking certainly it was. But then when it was going to be played, maybe you got a little bit excited that it might be in Cincinnati, and then it moved. Question is, were there two sets of feelings? Did you ever think it was going to actually be played in Cincinnati, or did it just, you kind of knew it was a foregone conclusion this past summer?
I mean, so much of this year we've taken kind of day by day. I mean, you don't know. I mean, still, even in December, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world in a lot of respects, and we consider ourselves pretty blessed that we're in a position to have a fairly successful year, to be reasonably busy, and some of the things that are headaches, you put them in perspective, and we look at the tournament that way. I mean, obviously, we would have loved to have seen it go off this year, but that certainly wasn't going to be the right thing to do. And we just watched it really closely, and March, April, you're kind of like, gosh, how's this COVID thing going to pan out, and what's it going to affect, and what planning things do we need to still continue to be doing in case the tournament does happen in August.
Yeah.
So there were certain things we had to kind of keep a toe in the water, um, to be prepared if it did take place. But then, once Wimbledon was canceled, and it didn't you didn't get the sense that it was probably going to happen. And I'd say that we were happy to see kind of the return to tennis, even though it was in a little different format. It was in the bubble, it was in NYC. Obviously we didn't have the opportunity to do the retail activation, but we were happy to see tennis kind of return. I mean, that was kind of the first big event that had taken place, and we were happy to see that. I think just for the return of tennis in its modified form. So it was kind of I don't even want to say bittersweet, because it wasn't. We were just happy to see tennis kind of come back, and then the U.S. Open, and then the red clay events after that. Just the different schedule. I think everybody's just adjusting, adapting, trying to make the best of it, and we're no different. And trying to seize opportunities maybe where you see them, and I would say if there's any silver lining in the pandemic, it's been the people have maybe found new ways to be active. And tennis happens to be one of those sports that they've seemed to gravitate to, and that directly impacts our business. So, from that standpoint, it's been positive. But we're certainly hoping things for 21, maybe start to move back to the direction that we were used to. We'll see. I keep hearing Australian Open's going to be moved by a few weeks, and that's kind of touch and go. But we're just, like I said, taking it day by day, because you just don't know. You can't take anything for granted anymore. So hopefully that gives everybody a nice fresh perspective on things, and maybe a new appreciation for things. It certainly has me. So, but looking forward to good things for
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, I mean, it was great seeing the players back out there. The U.S. Open, actually, there was some unbelievable
Yeah.
tennis
Oh yeah.
tennis played there, as you can remember. I want to go back, Dave, to what I was talking about when you spot players that are beginners just getting out there. I didn't want to demean players that are getting out there for the first time because there are a
No.
lot of players getting out there for the first time. And at the end, we're talking about equipment. At the end of the day, it's great to
Mhm.
see players getting back into the game
Yeah.
because it's so safe. So I just wanted to make that point. I love seeing anybody out.
No, absolutely, and it's funny that you kind of say that because you could see that there were people that were getting out, maybe grabbing a racket that had been sitting in the back of the garage or dusting off some old things. Some of the restrings that we saw, my gosh, I wanted to just like take pictures of them and like have an archive of the history of tennis rackets because it's the stuff people were bringing in. I'm like, hey, at least they're thinking about restringing it. That's a
Right.
but is it really worth restringing? I don't know. Some of those might have been kind of borderline, but just yeah, I was happy to see people getting back out on the
Yeah.
courts and maybe grabbing whatever they had to get out there and actually do it. But hey, at least they're doing it.
Right. Exactly. So I wanted to. So you were selling a lot of rackets this year because there were not a lot of new models coming out, refreshed models, um, brands that everyone knows that were putting out some big time sticks. Can you talk about some of the most popular product of 2020 from Midwest, and
Sure.
after that, what we're looking forward to in 2021?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I would say one category that really saw an uptick this year was kind of the beginner intermediate rackets. Some of these are even pre-strung. And that obviously kind of would be the appropriate place to start for a beginning player, somebody coming back to the game. Price points in a lot of cases. It's a broad category. I'm not going to say specific models or anything, but that's an area where we definitely saw a resurgence in 2020. In terms of some of the bigger product launches for the year, everybody still came out with what they had planned to come out with. Some of them maybe were delayed launches, things that had been planned for the spring, maybe early summer, out of sensitivity to the pandemic. A lot of brands did push things back to slightly later releases, but we got a new Pure Drive this year from Babolat, which is one of the industry standards. Uh, that
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
those are the rest of them that are coming, but that's one we get a new one every 2.5 years, and so those came out in August. Remaining models will come out in 21. We just got one model for this year, but Wilson updated the Pro Staff. They're on the 13th iteration of the Pro Staff. You'll see Roger on court with that when he returns. He took the year off due to his knee, but Pro Staff was a nice intro. Asics reset the Resolution franchise in their tennis footwear line. Just gel cushioning, super comfortable. Outsole warranty. So that was a pretty strong one. Feel like I'm forgetting something here. Oh, Nike's. I mean, I got kind of sick of seeing it, to be honest, but uh, I remember it from 30 years ago when I probably had some of it, but how they kind of did the rehash of the old Challenge Court line. They had all their players in it at the U.S. Open, and that's why I joke I got tired of seeing it because so many of their players did well. Every time you turn the TV on, you saw the neon yellow and
Yeah.
the fake denim and all that stuff. So, but no, those are kind of some of the highlights for this year. For 21, like I said, we're going to see more of the Pure Drive family. They're going to introduce the other models. Other racket over my shoulder here, new head Radical. It's kind of been one of their player franchises for a long time. They're going to update that with Graphene 360 Plus. Those come out in January. So just a lot of cool stuff coming. I'm trying to think if I forget anything here. Later in the year, Adidas is finally going to bring back the Barricade. That's been sorely missed for a couple years now in their line, and you they're finally bringing it back, but not until August. So I almost hesitate to mention it, but it's coming and it's worth a mention. So
Sure.
those are, off the top of my head, those are some of the big things coming for 2021. So we're excited about them.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be a robust year, and we'll see some new product out in the pipeline that maybe we don't expect yet. People are, whether it's tournaments or retailers or anybody in the business, it's a little bit of a wait and see now, but everybody's hoping
It's
for the best.
yeah, I mean one of the ways we're always kind of able to help market the product is, they see the players wearing it or playing with it, whatever it may be. Obviously, that's why they get endorsed to use it. And a good part of this year, we didn't have that story. Um, but I almost think that some of that was maybe not missed as much just because there was such a surge in demand for tennis products. So we were able to kind of weather that. But yeah, we'd love to get back to being able to kind of sell what the players are wearing and be able to kind of tell that story because for a good part of this year, we weren't able to do that. So, looking for that
Yeah.
return to normal, right? So,
Yeah. Well, I want to do something, Dave. I've been looking forward to it since we started talking about it on email. This should be fun. I've got, as I told you, I don't throw anything away. I mean, as you can see behind me, I mean, I've got stuff from that was in my room when I was a kid. But I've saved not every, but most of the rackets that I used since I was, I don't know, 5 or 6. So I went down in the basement. I found
wow.
8, and I didn't go too far back. But I have 8, and I want you to, and you might have to help me with some of these. See if you can tell me the brand's going to be easy, but the model, and then maybe anything you might know about it. I'm not going to try to stump you with something ridiculous, but let's
No,
let's
this should be interesting.
okay. So let's start easy, but I need to know the model.
That looks like Pure Drive, Babolat Pure Drive, when they decided to make it black instead of blue.
Okay. So
And I think go ahead.
how many iterations back is this one?
I want to say that's 2012 because if I remember correctly, that's where they came up with the connected version of it, Babolat Play,
Oh yeah,
Pure Drive Play. And I remember going to that launch and syncing the old iPhone,
yeah.
iPhone 4 or whatever at the time. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was based on that cosmetic. So I think it's 2012.
Okay. Let's go with talked a little bit about this one, but this is another version. You know this
Yeah,
racket?
well, it's a reissue of the old Pro Staff, the original Pro Staff. Is
Yeah,
that an 85?
it is. Yeah, it's an 85.
Yeah, so the old Pete Sampras and Stefan Edberg,
Yeah,
the purists want the ones made in St. Vincent, which
yeah,
you'll never find. But yeah, that looks like one of the reissues. I can see because they've got Pro Staff 6.0 on it. So
yeah,
that was their
yeah,
little stiffness index they put on
yeah. And Pete actually signed
it.
this, but I played. It's
Very
like
cool.
it's the fairway leather, but it's I
Yeah.
played with it. So that was smart. So you can't see the signature anymore. But anyway, this is a this is a great stick. I'm not walking out there anytime soon
That's a
with it.
good one, but I don't, man, I could never play with those. That thing
No.
is, I could never hit it in the middle that much.
You know this one?
um, that one, I don't know that we ever had that in the U.S. I don't know if we had. So Strixon, I know, was a partnership they entered into about 3 years ago.
Yeah. You know
And I'm not
this?
sure that we ever had that cosmetic in the U.S., but is
Yeah,
that from,
I think Kai gave me this,
okay,
and I don't, again, I don't even know if it hit the market. This was like almost
okay,
a version made on spec. I mean, it was anyway.
gotcha. No, I know they were. Radwanska was their player on tour for a few years, and she was using the actual Strixon branded rackets before Dunlop
Yeah,
had merged with them. And some of the early rackets we got from them a few years ago, like Strixon was all over it. And we're like, in the U.S., everybody knows Dunlop, so
yeah,
they've worked to kind of like pair the two a little bit more now. So
yeah,
familiar, but not completely with that one.
yeah. You remember this?
Michael Chang,
Yeah.
Prince Michael
Okay.
Chang graphite, 28. Well, is that the Chang? It looks like it.
Um,
It's a
it's
long body.
it's the precision graphite. Yeah, long body.
Gotcha. So the Chang was the oversized one. So it was in that same era, but yeah, I remember Precision Graphites, the crossbar in there, the old based off the old Prince Graphite. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah. It's a 95 head.
95. Okay.
Um, this?
Novak's K Blade. That's back when Novak played with Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
sold
was
those.
this was a serious blade. This was like this
Yeah.
thing was yeah, it still is. I mean,
That's a 93. That's a small one,
yeah,
or is it
it's
90?
93. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's I don't know anybody with those things. That's
yeah.
tiny.
Okay. Now this. Okay. You know Mickey Mall, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mickey gave me this. It wasn't even. This was like an early model. It hadn't even been painted really. Of it's a Babolat, obviously, because you can
Looks like a
see.
pure control. Pure
Yeah.
control, pure storm.
See, does it? And then it has, it has the red up here, but he gave it to me before it was a finished product.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think it's. You think it's I think it's pure control.
Depending on the years, because it went like pure control, then pure storm, and then it kind of morphed into the pure strike for like
Yeah.
the modern iterations. But yeah, that looks like when they were trying to figure out how to make something that wasn't a pure drive, because the pure drive had the wider beam on it,
Yeah.
and for a few years there, pure control was kind of their go-to. But we always sold 20 times more pure drives than we ever did the pure
Yeah.
control. So, but no, that's
I'll
cool to
ask.
have a prototype. Those are rare.
Yeah, I'll ask Mickey what I should know, but I thought it was going to
Yeah,
say pure.
he was a strike guy, I think, before he
Yeah.
went to Wilson, and he had to switch. But and I don't know what
Yeah.
he's playing with now. So
Okay. You said not to use wood, but I think this is pretty easy. I love this racket.
no woodies. So then of course you bring out the Prince Woody. So yeah, the old man. That's an interesting playing racket too. The fact that it's
Yeah.
an oversized head and it's
Yeah.
actually laminated wood. So it's got some fiberglass in it, doesn't it? So
Yeah. Yeah. And
it's a little more forgiving than an old traditional, teeny tiny wood head.
yeah,
So
and this thing, yeah, it's heavy. And I put a
no ten,
modern, I put one of these. They didn't even have these back when I came out.
no
So
tennis elbow with that thing. That's for sure. It's
yeah.
heavy and flexible. So that's man, that's a classic.
Okay. So you're not going to believe this thing. All right. Don't laugh because you might know what it is. I have no idea how I got this racket, but look at this. Have you ever seen
Uh,
this thing?
yeah, I feel like we had some of those sent to us. People trying to sell us on those, and we never brought them in. But what is
But
even the
you,
brand on it?
look at that. It looks like an egg. It's
Yeah,
X40. It's like an X45.
I, that just looks like a design study that never got off the table.
Yeah, I mean you can see like look at that thing.
Just just I'm not sure I could walk out on the court with that, but it's certainly interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Sounded Must have sounded good on paper, but I'm not so sure about that.
uh, well, no, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I should bring every racket up here. We'll just do it. We don't
Well,
need to do it.
that one in the background, I the Mats
Which
Wielander,
one?
the Rossignol over
Oh,
your right
that's
shoulder.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
F100. Or it
yeah.
might be, yeah, it's the F100. But there was an F200 as
F200 is
well.
the one I
Yeah,
had. I think that had Wielander's name on it. So
yeah, that.
yeah, he was my one of my favorite players back in the
Oh
day.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
I love that one. I should have brought that down. So anyway,
that's all right. That's all right.
anyway, Dave, you've been very generous with your time, and
Glad to do it.
also wanted to thank Midwest for your support and sponsorship of Tennis One in our first year. We really appreciate it. You guys believing in the platform, so
Yes.
we, thank you for that.
Yeah, we enjoy it, and it was great to try some new things in 2020. Just things we haven't even looked at before, but
Yeah.
everything's been pretty decent this year, and some of the new marketing partnerships that we've tested out have been really fun. And things like this, I mean, this is why I love what I do. I mean, this is kind of what I'm surrounded with every day. So I'm always happy to hop on and talk tennis, talk equipment, whatever it may be. I'm always excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see if I can get you some more of those X45s because
Oh,
they're gonna go off the. I mean,
man.
you want to get that thing in stock before Christmas.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I know. I feel like we've got enough racket models already, so might not have room.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave. This
Sure
was
thing.
a lot of fun. Happy holidays, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Randy.